Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse. And hey, the week's reasonably sized, and actually pretty good. And it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. It's rare when this show gives me a short week exactly when I might need it, but looks like we got that just here. And right after I came back from vacation with a massive backlog. And hell, most of the songs appear to be pretty damn good. Hey, sometimes things fall out right once in a while. Let's hopefully keep this going. But alright, let's keep this on pace, our top 10, where once again Flowers by Miley Cyrus has a grip on the number 1. And while it seems like it's slipping a bit and losing the top spot on streaming, she still dominates YouTube sales and now sits at the very top on the radio. Hate to say it, but Kill Bill by SZA does not really have enough to get there as of yet at number 2. Streaming is incredibly solid, but she just can't close that margin on airplay and sales fast enough. There's still a tangible lead over Creepin' by Metro Boomin, The Weeknd, and 21 Savage up to number 3 though, which spent the week battling Miley for radio supremacy despite the fact that its streaming is slipping. And that's not something I could say about our new top 10 entry, and one that does kind of surprise me. Boy's a Liar Part 2 by Pink Pantheress and Ice Spice at number 4. Pretty much here just on streaming. This was not a breakthrough I saw coming, but hey, I guess when your YouTube's robust and you've got that TikTok virality, you can make it work. It smashed right past Last Night by Morgan Wallen down to number 5. It held on sales, but streaming took a dip, and this is what happens when the radio is just not there to support your momentum. Compare this to Unholy by Sam Smith and Kim Petras sliding to number 6, where it's on the downswing pretty much everywhere, but radio has actually taken its sweet time getting rid of it. Much to my shock, given how much controversy it continues to stir up among a lot of religious conservatives. I mean, good lord, even when the Satanism is done badly, they're still throwing a hissy fit. This leads to Die For You by The Weeknd at number 7, which seems to be on the downswing on the radio, but apparently The Weeknd has now thrown up his hands and has just embraced the old song from Starboy as a single, so apparently there might be a remix coming with Ariana Grande. I mean, ideally the time to have rolled out that remix would have been a couple of weeks ago when it was on the upswing, but I think The Weeknd was probably still bitter Dawn FM did not do more. I can't really blame him for that. Then we got Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift down at number 8. Definitely on the decline everywhere. It's just the margins that are keeping the fall off slow for now. Followed by a dip for Cuff It by Beyonce to number 9 as the sales margin evaporated and the radio was sliding. And I'm Good Blue by David Guetta and BB Rexa at number 10, which the radio seems to be dumping as fast as possible. Good. Speaking of which, our losers and dropouts. Not all that much in the latter category, really just Whiskey on You by Nate Smith falling well short of any year-end list, if we're lucky. But if you look at our declines, this is the week that tested Morgan Wallen's staying power after last week, because he saw some big losses. I Wrote the Book at 56, One Thing at a Time at 59, Everything I Love at 67, and Tennessee Fan down to 100. Hell, it's hard to complain about the majority of our losers here. The Color Violet by Tory Lanez down at 77, Shut Up My Mom's Calling by Hotel Ugly at 83, Forget Me by Louis Capaldi at 93. The only ones I'm slightly warmer to here are Love Language by SZA at 91, Ex Si Volvemos by Karol G and Romeo Santos dipping off the debut to 79, Growing Up and Getting Old by Luke Combs at 74, and Dawns by Zach Bryan featuring Maggie Rogers slipping to 61. And let's face it, that last one, it's a miracle that it's lasting this high anyways. Now for our returns and gains, where in the former category, we did see Dancing in the Country by Tyler Hubbard back at 92, and Forever by Lil Baby featuring Friday at 86. The big story here is Rihanna, courtesy of her Super Bowl performance that honestly I thought was kind of mediocre. From that, Umbrella with Jay-Z came back to 37, Diamonds hit 44, and We Found Love with Calvin Harris hit 48, with Lift Me Up in our gains getting a boost up to 41. But I don't really expect that to last. In our gains, the bigger story here might be Ice Spice. I already mentioned Boy's a Liar Part 2, but In Hamoud also saw a spike off the debut to 70. She might be sticking around more than some might think or have wanted. I just personally wish that her music was more interesting. But now on to a thankfully limited list of new arrivals, starting off with number 99, Painting Pictures by Superstar Pride.
Handouts for nobody. When I ain't had shit, they ain't offer me nothing. When I'm quiet, I be thinking about killings. A lot of nigga bitch may stay in they feelings. Saving these hoes, this shit here pitiful. All these little bit of bitch in my chillings. Whew.
I gotta be honest, when I saw this song debut, I really didn't know what to make of it. Superstar Pride is a southern rapper who went viral with this song that dropped last year on one of his EPs. Apparently he's got management connections to Youngboy Never Broke Again, and this, well, the first thing that jumps out is that Faith Evans sample that flips across keys against the sharper, heavier trap percussion that's actually pretty well produced. And Superstar Pride's vocal tone reminds me a little bit of when DaBaby tried to be serious, albeit with a more convincing, sober, mature focus. Well, I say that off the hook where he's talking about avoiding violence with no handouts, eventually trying to give back to his family, but the verse says he didn't have a dad, which kind of openly contradicts his hook and his father's wisdom, and there's also a much more sour angle to the whole "that's not my son" vibe that for an unknown rapper right out of the gate feels kinda sketchy. That's normally a bar you get when you're a lot more famous. Not right now. It kind of throws me off. Honestly, I hear potential, but it feels kind of unrefined. If you get some solid artistic development, no guarantees, you'll do okay. This is fine. Number 84, Fixin' a Break by Bailey Zimmerman.
Tell me what it is you're thinking, shoot me straight. Are we fixing a break?
I'll be honest, I'm stunned we're getting new Bailey Zimmerman songs. I figured once the industry finally threw all the weight back behind Morgan Wallen, any traction that Zimmerman would have would evaporate. But this might be tied to an upcoming album. They're actually giving him more runway. And good thing too, because this track's actually quite good. It appears that Bailey Zimmerman finally has more of a production budget to give his warmer, organic raw-like and pedal steel some presence, and multi-tracking his backing vocals gives his rasp a little bit more presence in the mix. I'd almost place those backing vocals closer to indie folk territory. That's kind of a nice touch. And I like the lyrics too. The sort of confrontation when they've been both stretched to the limit with the metaphor of a house that they're building and the question of whether it's all even worth pushing forward. And while he's confident in his own feelings, he's ultimately got to place the decision up to her. It's a work of two here. It's honestly more mature than what I expected from Bailey Zimmerman, but I'd argue he sells it well. I got no idea if this is going to sustain any traction, but yeah, I like this song. Check it out. Number 52, Special by Lizzo featuring SZA.
Special, in case nobody made you believe. You're special.
Oh look, Lizzo picks one of the worst songs on her new album to push as the single, albeit with a big remix from SZA to get it over the hump. And you know, I'll say it, there are parts of the song that I think are okay. The splashy horns are nice, there's not much groove, but the production doesn't feel as plastic. I'll give Max Martin credit for that. And SZA absolutely makes this song better, both through sheer vocal presence in her belting, but also how it changes the context of the track, mostly because she admits some very tangible vulnerability, opening it up, calling out those who lack empathy even as she's trying to move forward and be vulnerable. She sounds like someone who could actually use the self-esteem anthem that Lizzo can then respond with. That's a nice touch. The problem is that otherwise this feels really basic and kind of clunky in the execution, especially with that hook, and Lizzo bringing up getting canceled for wanting to change. And I mean, that's a more complicated mess than this song really feels equipped to approach. At least now there's some more emotional dynamics being recognized. It makes it tolerable, but I'm still not a big fan. Gotta admit it. Number 38, Lost by Linkin Park.
Living behind my own illusion.
I'm honestly surprised we did not get songs like this sooner. For those of you who don't know, Linkin Park back in the early 2000s were notorious for making dozens of songs that would never make the album because the pop hooks were not considered strong enough. Now this track, for instance, was reportedly part of the more limited Meteora sessions back in 2002, repackaged for the 20th anniversary of the album, and okay, fine. I'm more tolerant of this than the posthumous grave robbery that happens for so many rappers these days, and the band did finish this song decades ago, which is why snippets of this track have been leaking since the 2000s. And it certainly does feel like something of that era, with a bit of modern polish in some of the fine details. The glassy percussion around the rumbling riffs, the scratches and the chilly synths, Chester splitting the difference between singing and howling, and a lot of the lyrics circling stifling depression and painful memories. It really really does sound like something that could have been a B-side to Numb, for instance. But that's also kind of the problem. Meteora is my favorite Linkin Park album. I'd call this a weaker, borderline throwaway song if it had been on it. It's only essential now because we haven't gotten new music from Linkin Park since Chester's death. I mean, this is not bad, but I wouldn't really call it special. I mean, not gonna complain about quality Linkin Park, but this does not hit greatness. At least for me. And finally, number 15, Love You Anyway by Luke Combs.
Reason this heart breaks. Oh, I'd love you anyway.
Well, Luke Combs is full on going for that sister album, and I was hearing really positive things about this track going in, and you know, when nearly the first thing I hear is that fiddle that's impeccably mic'd opposite rich neo-traditional instrumentation and the subtlest of harmonies on the hook, I knew I was a sucker for this immediately, especially for the sort of love song where Luke Combs almost seems to know that the relationship might not work and the breakup will hurt him way more, but he's gonna love her anyway. I especially like how in the second verse he highlights the very tangible risk in writing the song he could potentially hit the sour note, especially as the words might not match up with the gravity of how he really feels. It kind of reminds me a bit of the sentiment that Elton John had in the chorus of Your Song, and you know what, if I'm making that comparison, I think you have something special. If I am nitpicking, I'd say the melody feels a bit conventional. I'm not sure how much it's gonna stick, but man, I know a hot streak when I hear it. This is a great song. Check it out. And yeah, Luke Combs is getting the best of the week. Although I will say, Bailey Zimmerman really did keep it close. Worst of the week, I was tempted to give it to Special, but SZA saves it just enough, so I guess Painting Pictures by Superstar Pride, it's probably the most flawed song as of now. Still, it was a good week. I'm expecting very little of it to last, but we'll have to see. Until then, though, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.